I can start. What do you want me to know?
Letters?
Yeah, I think, yeah, it shouldn't be a problem. If you start hearing static, you can just see.
Is it always recording right now?
No. So you gotta go there.
The direction came from the Middle Board Conference 80s. None of the other schools in the Middle Board Conference lettered anyone except for seniors. And that's kind of where the policy came from and where the decision making came
Is there anybody that's
There's some
is there anybody that, how can I tell if they're not
that I
muted?
don't know that it's
That's right there. That means they're muted.
So
So
very well thought out, very well.
So yeah, if you start hearing background noise, it goes to the person that's making the noise and it'll identify them, then you can mute them.
And I just do that right before they hear.
Yeah, or as they're starting to
the letter from the perspective of the kid are really important, but from some of the
see
decision
everybody
makers,
and make sure.
that's what everybody's looking at.
I think because there's so many people, just automatically.
So,
So if we don't get a quorum, still can go through the agenda, just not take any action. Yep. Play with discussion.
Yeah, we'll probably just skip several items from what's the point of discussing a few of the things in there.
Okay. Let's give him another couple of minutes here and see if he shows up. If not, we'll get started.
Howard, do you want to maybe say something, since there's so many people in the queue that might hear what the delay is? Do you think?
We can. We'll have to unmute my mic. But
Should we?
Okay, good evening, everybody online. We're still waiting for one of our members to constitute a quorum, so we're going to give them a couple of minutes yet. If we do not get a quorum, then we will proceed through the agenda as best we can, but there will be no decisions made at this point until we get a quorum of the board members present. So please be a little patient, and we'll be back with you in a couple of minutes.
Should board members be on?
Yeah.
On the Zoom?
Not necessary.
Okay.
I think so. It is being live stream too. So I thought I heard.
Which cameras are live streaming?
This one's one.
There's two. Yeah.
Do you want to test it?
My wife just said she's putting me topics.
It's a good thing you're saying important things. So what mic is that in this one? Everybody heard that?
The mic is on.
Yeah, right.
Tim, is this the mic for online?
It's in the ceiling actually. It's unidirectional, arrow pointed, so it'll pick up everything really well. Kirk's coming. Hey, Kirk. Okay. Oh, okay. Sounds good, thank you. All right, bye. He's on his way. Okay.
Your mic is on, Howard, I don't know if you want it or not.
Okay. Kirk's on his way, we can probably get rid of the first parts of the agenda. Okay. Okay, good evening, everybody. My name is Howard Kurski, President of the Board, and I'm going to call the meeting to order. We're still waiting for one of our members to arrive to constitute a quorum, but I will call the meeting to order. First order of business, if everyone will please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we'll go through the roll. Scott DeGrosse, present. Brian Koffel, present. Howard Kurski, present. Kirk, I believe, is on his way. Absent at the meeting at this time will be Mr. Olson and Mr. Redmond. Was the meeting properly notified?
Yes, it was.
Okay, and at this time, I noticed that we are both being recorded by audio and video. Those online, if you would be so kind as to mute your computers at this time, it'd be appreciated. Okay. Moving on to the next agenda item, we do have public comment, and I believe we have two people who have requested to comment. First one, I believe, was Mr. Taden Holzer. Are you online, Taden?
So you need to turn up your volume.
Okay.
If you want, we can connect you to that and we can hear it through that audio.
Okay. 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 Taden, can you hear us?
I can, yes.
Okay. We'll give you an opportunity to address the board at this time. I believe you had some concerns with regards to athletic letters.
Yes, I did. I just wanted to bring it to you guys because, you know, as obviously everyone knows, every athlete missed their spring sports season this past year. And I know it was a decision by the conference to only letter seniors, but I think that decision should definitely be reviewed and overturned because, I mean, everyone in the sport that would have lettered normally has been robbed of a chance to get that letter. And I wouldn't be coming to you guys if this was a matter of just like a pin on my jacket, because that's not really what it's about. But for me at least, and I know for many other people, because I've heard concerns from many other student athletes, because these things, letters can play into scholarships, many scholarships, not just within the school, but outside of school. And I know for me personally, me not getting this letter means that I will not be a 12-time athletic letter winner, which will affect me in trying to become a WIA state scholar athlete. So that, with that being said, it's a matter of, coaches checking a box on a paper to get everyone else a letter. There's not really a con to this situation. The people that would have lettered, as determined by a coach, should be given a letter. And
Lori Green.
Okay,
Lori, will you ask Lori to mute herself, please, Lori Green?
I don't see.
Lori Green, can you mute yourself?
I got my mic, it's muted. Yes. Yes.
Don't see her.
Okay,
Yes.
we're getting a lot of feedback somewhere.
Oh, I did, sorry.
okay,
Okay, Tayden?
yeah, so like I was saying, it's not just me that feels this way. I've talked to many other student athletes from multiple sports that feel that we as, athletes, we deserve this letter, because I know for me personally, I'm in track and field. I would have lettered, I met the lettering requirements already by being out for track, because the lettering requirement was be in track for 3 years, and I met that already. So me and many other athletes have been, basically robbed of this letter, and by taking this away, it's just taken opportunities for scholarships away. So I just want the board to review that decision that was made and hopefully overturn it. Thank you, guys.
Okay. Brian, do you have a comment?
As we had talked,
Maybe.
Can you stand at the mic?
I'm gonna ask if they can hear him at home, just to double check the
I
volume.
don't know who he is.
Okay, we have Brian Johnson, our athletic director, speaking at this time.
There's a switch by right hand to raise the level too. So it's up to repeat.
can you hear me at home?
Yeah, they're nodding.
All right. The decision in regards to lettering regarding spring athletes this year was decided upon by the Middle Border Conference Athletic Directors. The decision was made after much conversation, discussion, and in determining what was best for schools and the programs, and we knew that there were going to be hardships and scenarios like Hayden is speaking to. But in regards to some of those decisions, there are many athletes in that situation who will be a 3-year letter winner instead of a 4-year letter winner, and kind of an asterisk year for many student athletes. So that's where the decision came from.
I guess one question I would ask, and I don't know if this is a compromise that could be worked on, would be those that would have been out for that spring sport, if they were to enroll in a letter this upcoming spring, would they be awarded a letter retroactively?
There are discussions right now with Middle Border Conference athletic directors in regards to remedies for the situation and possibly awarding retroactive letters. But that's not a decision that's been made at this time. That's only in its infancy in discussions.
Okay.
And definitely something we would consider.
Okay. Does anybody else have any comment on that matter? Okay. I guess comment back to you, Tayton, as this is a fluid situation at this time. I think there are options out there. I think any scholarships within the state of Wisconsin for applying this next year are not going to be dependent on a 12-letter winner, since the spring season was essentially suspended for all sports in the state. And so therefore, I don't think that would be a matter of consideration. But I think as far as awarding letters, I think that is still something up to discussion, and it's discussion among the officials of the conference and within our own school district. So nothing has been settled yet, and I guess the only thing I would ask at this time is to be patient. So.
Also, I'd like to thank Tayton for his respectful and very thoughtful letters and inquiries into this matter. He's shown a great deal of maturity, patience, and intelligence in pursuing this, and a great product of our school. So he's going about this in the right way, in a very respectful way, and I appreciate that and thank him for his maturity.
Okay. I don't know if that's a satisfactory answer for you at this time, Tayton, but I appreciate your input.
Yeah, thank you guys for listening to me, for sure.
Okay. I guess stay in touch, and if anything changes, we'll keep you posted.
Will do.
Okay. I believe there was another one that wanted to speak, Mr. Logan Kimberly. Logan, can
Yeah,
you
I'm
hear
here,
us?
Howard. Can you guys hear me?
Yes. Go ahead.
All right. Well, thank you for this opportunity to speak to the board. I just wanted to, obviously, one of the key items on the agenda tonight is the proposal for the reopening of our schools. And I was on the high school committee, committee comprised of teachers solely from the high school to talk about options best suited for reopening in terms of simply from a high school perspective. So I can't really speak from middle school or elementary perspective. Although we only had 2 meetings to sort of discuss and weigh out options, I think, again, without speaking for everyone on that committee, I think very strongly that we all felt very good about the sort of blended or hybrid model that we came up with. And I would say that no one that spoke up in that committee was opposed to it. So it was fairly unanimous from the high school committee. From my knowledge, the proposal that the board will hear tonight, the high school part of that proposal has kind of been disregarded. Basically, again, from what I've heard, in order to be systemic throughout the district. That's a little upsetting and disheartening to me, especially, again, because from the knowledge that I have, the 20-person committee that is presenting this proposal is not comprised of any teachers, let alone any high school teachers. So people that would be in front of students teaching on a daily basis. I really feel strongly that this proposal should be simply the start of a conversation. I know that a lot of things can change in another month and a half, but I really feel very strongly that we need to look at a lot of other options, and that the proposal that you hear should just be a conversation starter and not a decision maker moving forward. Again, this is my opinion, but I feel like we need to listen to scientific experts who have concluded, among other things, that social distancing and masks, which I see many people at the meeting are wearing tonight, should be required. Again, this is coming from my opinion, but a lot of my colleagues who have shared similar opinions and share concerns for their families back home, especially our parents. Our parents are 60s, 70s, 80s, as opposed to students' parents who might be a little younger and not as susceptible. So, yeah, I guess thank you for hearing me out, but I just feel that from the knowledge that I've received about the upcoming proposal, that you have not or will not hear the proposal as coming from the high school committee.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. Any comments from board members?
Thank
Okay.
you, Logan.
Thank you for coming forward the board.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you. Okay, at this time, is there anybody else who would like to address the board in public comment? Okay, hearing none, we will move on to the next item on the agenda, which consists of our highlight on youth, which we have nothing at this time. We'll move on to our next agenda, which are comments from our board members and superintendent. First item is our resignation of our board director, Tricia Rogers. I'd like to thank her for her service. Due to personal considerations, she has chose to resign from the board at this time. The board has agreed at this time of a format of which anybody, any qualified elector of the district and U.S. citizen, as stated in our board policy, would be eligible for this board seat. We have had a couple of people in the district who have already expressed interest and submitted letters of qualifications. If there are anybody else out there, we will be accepting letters of consideration up until the 1st of August. We will proceed on our August 3rd meeting to look at those letters, consider the candidates. We will probably do face-to-face interviews of those candidates in front of the board members. And based on that, the board would vote as far as who the best candidate would be to fill that position. That position would be filled until the spring election of 2021, which would be April. And they would at that time have to stand for a full 3-year term. Our hope is to have that person seated as a regular member of the school board by the 20th of August board meeting, I believe that is. 17th? Okay. I'm a couple of days off, but it would be the 17th of August, which would be our next regular board meeting. So, comments for board members with regards to that time frame?
No, I think that suits what we had discussed.
Okay. Any other comments with regards to that item? Okay, moving on. The next item of our comments would be our July 8th and 9th workshop that was held here at the district office by board members and administration. And I don't know, you have comments, Tim?
No, just as very productive two nights, and the work that was done is summarized and be presented in our policy under item 13, policy 110, the district vision, mission, beliefs, and commitments. So I think we can, I guess, discuss it maybe more there as we share those and look at those. But I think the work was intentional and very much aligned, and will continue to be, the tool that we align to moving forward.
Comments, Scott, Brian?
I just want to thank everyone that participated for a very thoughtful conversation.
That was a good event. I appreciated it being on the board. Just learned a lot, and I think everybody came together, and I think it was really good work. So, good couple of days.
Yeah, and my statements would be to thank Joe Donovan for mediating, thank the board members and administrators that had participated in the workshop. I think it was a good detailed review of our vision and mission statements and how we are to implement those, the goals that we established. And so it's good to review that periodically to make it a living document rather than something that we throw in a file drawer. So much appreciate the review, the heartfelt discussion, and the time that it took to do that. So thank you, everyone. Okay, one last thing that I'll comment for the board is we are entering our phase of Tim's annual review. I've already met with him once. Tim will be putting together his input for the his annual review. As board policy says, we must have it completed and signed off and in his hands by the end of August. So at this point, he will have his materials ready to us by the meeting on August 3rd. At that point, we will have a preliminary discussion amongst board members of Tim's input, and then over the next week or so, we'll get the board's comments on that as we have previously and submit them back to me. I will compile a summary of the statements, and we will have a review before the board on our August 17th meeting. And then we will go through and finish the final part of that and hopefully be completed before the first of the year. That will review his performance over the last year and set his goals for the next year. So, any questions or comments from board members there? Okay, with that, I don't believe we have any scheduled presentations. No financial report at this time. We'll move on to consideration of the consent agenda. Okay. Consideration of the consent agenda, which consists of approval of our meeting minutes of our June 22nd special board meeting, approval of the bi-monthly bills for June and July, approval of resignations and retirements. Brad Sasinski, full-time middle school assistant football coach. Emily Weck, our full-time middle school volleyball coach. Tammy Mirth is our full-time middle school girls basketball coach. Carl Oslin, 5.5-hour grounds custodian. Eric Frazier, our high school play and set director, coordinator. We have Riley Waltz as our full-time C-team girls basketball coach. Angie Brown as our full-time student counselor mentor. Approval of appointments and contract modifications. Rosemary Villali is our 7.5-hour middle school special ed para. Hunter Brasina, a 7-hour middle school special ed para. Ben Lamb is our full-time middle school assistant football coach. Hallie Tassler, our full-time C-team volleyball coach. Caitlin Kurlmeyer is our full-time elementary school counselor. And she will also take on the role as, well, I guess that's on there already, as a counselor mentor. Also approval of the contract curricular student requests to enroll in full-time, part-time virtual ed courses.
Howard, backing up, that is a separate position, student council.
Student council.
That's not on the agenda.
Okay, so also I guess the Caitlin Perlmeyer as our elementary student council mentor is also a position. Approval of our 66301 agreement for the deaf and hard of hearing program with River Falls, and approval of our 66301 agreement with physical therapy with Baldwin, Woodville, Prescott, and Somerset School District. So I don't believe I saw any of the curricular modifications, so there's none at this time. So with that, I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Move approval as presented.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion, Scott, second, Brian, to approve the consent agenda as presented. All members in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, moving on to the next item on the agenda is a presentation of the school reopening plan by the St. Croix Central administrators. So, Tim.
All right, thank you. So this is going to be the administrative recommendation and tries to encapsulate the work that we've done. A number of people acknowledge in our handbook the last, well, since June 1st, the school reopening committee, 20-member committee has been meeting weekly. Obviously, we've been part of numerous meetings with state and local authorities, including Department of Health Services, WASDA, CISA, WIAA, legal counsel, area superintendents, state superintendents, et cetera, et cetera. So these are the plans as of right now, today, July 20th, 2020. And there are 6 weeks to go, and we acknowledge that things can certainly change, most likely will, in the next 6 weeks before the first day of school.
I'm getting comments, I can't hear you.
There we go.
Okay.
Still sharing the screen. Yep. All right, the purpose of this plan, again, as of today, July 20th, is to reopen school this fall in the safest way possible by mitigating risk, not eliminating, but mitigating, while preparing our students with exceptional character, knowledge, and skills. So that is our mission. And trying to do both well is extremely difficult. Just need to acknowledge that. This plan is developed with guidance from numerous federal, state, and local agencies and local stakeholders. And like I said earlier, perhaps you didn't hear me, it's likely to be adjusted as new information is gathered in the next 6 weeks. And then, of course, this plan cannot possibly address every scenario that the COVID-19 pandemic might produce, but with extremely talented group of staff here at SEC, I'm confident we'll be able to meet them and address them accordingly. So there are assumptions I want to start with and acknowledge right away. The safety of our staff and students and community is a top priority. Also, the education of our students and social emotional wellness and staff is a top priority as well. Each school will make modifications because obviously things look a little different at the elementary, let's say, than the high school, than the middle school. There will be positive cases within the school district. That is an assumption. There will be close contacts of cases that will need to self-isolate. This includes both students and staff. And again, a close contact is defined as being 6 feet or closer for 15 minutes or more. Remote learning will be required at times, and I'll explain later. And extracurricular events may be canceled or postponed based on the disease activity. And sports risk levels do vary. Again, our commitments regarding safety, instruction, and of course, we need to be flexible. We worked very closely, most closely with St. Croix County Public Health. It's another entity that the St. Croix County superintendents have meetings with weekly and dialogue with almost daily. Let's start with some stakeholder input.
Tim,
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Howard needs to mute. There's feedback coming back.
I thought I was.
Sorry. They're just starting to comment on it. Sorry.
No, thank you.
No.
That's technology. There's gonna be.
Okay.
Is it better now?
Yes.
Can't see folks' faces. Okay. So the parent survey that was sent in early June, there were 876 responses. One of the first questions was, if we have in-person school starting September 1st with health mitigation best practices in place, would you send your child to school? 74.5% said yes. A small percentage, I think it was around 5%, said no, and then 23% said not sure yet, I need more information, which is completely understandable. And we asked about models or methods of instruction. You can see 67% at that time favored 100% in-person learning. The next most popular choice was alternating days in person. And then there was an option that, for parents that had more than one, had children in multiple schools, so that applied to them. And then a small percentage, no in-person instruction. If we were to adopt a blended model with decreased days, would your child or children require childcare? And almost 64% were no, almost 20% yes, 17% maybe. Transportation, 50% of the respondents said my child plans to ride the bus to and from school. 33% said we plan to have our own transportation. And 17% my child plans to drive. So if we limit the number of children on the bus, they ask, would you be able or arrange for someone to drive them to/from school? So of those that responded, they would need bus or school district transportation. And 35% said they could arrange for someone for transportation themselves. Staff survey a couple weeks after that, mid-June, there were 189 responses. We asked at that time, are you comfortable starting school in the fall with in-person instruction? 72% said yes, 27% unsure. We asked about face coverings. At that time, 67% said wearing masks is optional for staff. 25% would like staff to be required to wear masks, and 8% at that time, no staff wear masks. We asked about personal protective equipment they would want made available. Again, the most common, hand sanitizer and sanitizer wipes, followed by disposable masks, then gloves, and then cloth reusable masks. We thought it'd be appropriate based on last spring's at-home learning being so dependent on internet connection, and if we had to go back to that, it'd be helpful to understand what the home internet connection was. And at that time, 63% good, or I'm sorry, well, let's start with 26% great, 62.4 good, 9.5 poor, and a small percentage had no internet, of which again we purchased 35 hotspots that we made available late. It took a long time because obviously vendors were running short on supply, but we have them available for our staff and students next year, prepared for that. So our plans, here's some of the basic areas: operations, instructional models, our communication plan, covered stakeholder input, talk a little bit about extracurricular activities and virtual school. So as of today, getting back to the classroom safely, let's talk about operations. So for our physical spaces, barriers, plexiglass barriers, and offices with high traffic, we've had them in the district office here for a while, and they work very well. Get them in all offices and other areas that need them and have high traffic, just to get that physical separation. This time, we do not recommend requiring student or staff temperature checks. Again, there's just too many variables there. One of the main ones being that fever can be controlled with medication. Science shows that not all people show symptoms of fever. Those are a couple of the top two. Then just logistically, the bottlenecks it could create. We temperature check students and staff as they come in. It makes physical separation difficult. So at this time, we do not recommend temperature checks. Related to that, though, we'll talk about a little bit daily health screeners. Other physical things, floor adhesives or Velcro. Signs on the floor just to remind folks of keeping the 6-foot separation. You see them all over in many of the stores. Public areas, just as reminders in high traffic areas. We want students to have access to drinking water, but water fountains, as they are, would be a problem. For sanitation, so at this time we're asking staff and students to bring their own bottles. They would be able to be filled. We will have bottle fillers that don't require any touching. And also disposable cups if folks forget their water bottles. And have plans to just have them accessible without multiple shared touching of hands. Obviously, signage is a big thing, and just reminders about hand hygiene, covering coughs, social distancing, what symptoms to look for, wearing of masks, etc. Sanitation stations include both hand washing stations and hand sanitizing stations, and placement in strategic areas and common areas. Daily health screeners, as I mentioned before, not taking temperatures, but we would do a tremendous amount of education about symptoms and monitoring and what to look for, so that we ask parents and students and staff to monitor and screen their children and or themselves at home, because if we do this at school, privacy is a real concern. And then our staff would also be trained in what symptoms to look for. We can get into that in a little more detail later slides. The overlying message is this. It's this simple. If you are sick, stay home. If you are sick, stay home. We talk about social distancing, which I'm sure everyone's well aware of by now. 6 feet or more is the recommendation of the CDC and all health entities. And we want to try to do that creatively in the spaces that we have while still working and educating our students. And using our outdoor spaces and large spaces as much as feasible. The health practices recommend an isolation room for students showing symptoms at school that manifest. The current health room would not be that. That current health room still would need to be used for injuries and medication distribution. Isolation rooms are being identified and talked about in each building location for students who are ill. More with healthy environments, increased ventilation, increased cleaning and disinfecting, much teaching about hand hygiene and reinforcing that. Individual supplies, as much as possible, not sharing objects, communal spaces that have to be used, such as the lunchroom, etc., staggered use, and increased protocols. Again, I talked about the isolation room, a key component, proving to be a challenge, but we will have that figured out, no doubt, by the first day. It's a separate area for students who are sick, and students will be masked, if not already. They are going to be required to be picked up and taken home as soon as possible. And sick staff and students may not return until cleared by the school nurse, / public health. And there's a helpful flow chart here. This chart simplifies things and seems to help clear up things. So just let folks look at that for a little bit.
And Tim, just for clarification, this is going to all be posted and available for everyone to review online?
Correct. So
tomorrow morning.
Be sending out this presentation as well as a handbook with even more details to all parents and staff tomorrow. And posted online, shared Facebook, and our website. PH stands for Public Health. Obviously, working with public health, after there'll be decisions made and instructions given after we work with public health. A lot of this is going to be in their hands and communication with them. We do that in collaboration, but strongly recommend testing to determine if student or staff has COVID-19 is positive. And this is also a link for testing sites. Because of privacy laws, we can't communicate specifics about students or staff who have tested positive, but there will be some general demographics, obviously, that St. Croix County Public Health is able to share. The folks that are in close contact and are most likely affected in one way or another will most certainly be notified on an individual basis. St. Croix County will do the contact tracing. Again, for those unfamiliar with that term, contact tracing is basically interviewing and investigating the folks that met that close contact criteria and start interviewing them and tracing it back so everyone that could potentially be exposed to a positive case is notified and is hyper aware and vigilant about looking for signs and symptoms. And it would, again, public health will notify those people if they have to begin this self-isolation protocol. And our school staff will help St. Croix County in contact information and getting those staff in contact with our staff or students. We will not allow visitors. We will allow essential visitors, such as folks that are working on our facilities, need to get them operational, thing like that. So essential visitors will be allowed only, and they will go through the same screening questions and be required to wear a mask. Face coverings at this time, this is the probably most debatable topic among all schools that I'm aware of and many people. At this time, recommending that face coverings are strongly encouraged for staff and students in our buildings, especially when staff and students cannot maintain social distancing. Students and staff are asked to provide their own. We will provide them if they do not have their own as well. And the reason we stop short of saying they are required is we keep getting stuck on the enforcement is one of the things, how we enforce that. And then secondly, there are folks with underlying health conditions that would actually put them more at risk by wearing them. So that those two things there right now keep us from saying that face masks, face coverings are required. Field trips and gatherings, there will be no in-person field trips or gatherings. Virtual opportunities are encouraged. Staffing, Again, flexibility may, we reserve the right to reassign staff as needed to cover daily operational needs, prioritizing student learning and safety. Again, that's fluid, depending on the situation. High-risk staff are asked to please communicate with Elaine Stark and HR, who we have a lot of federal guidance procedures in conjunction with our local policies and the employee handbook. High-risk students have the option to enroll in our virtual school, and we ask that they contact the nurse. Parents, students contact the nurse with any health concerns, especially related to COVID-19. And then hours of operation, we're asking students, only be here during the necessary times. Can come either before or after school, as usual, for extracurricular activities or other supervised activities. In regards to transportation, again, we are asking parents, please to provide transportation, if possible, to reduce the number of riders on our buses. Obviously, a bus and a large number of students, up to 70 some students can be on buses. We would like to reduce that number to mitigate risk. Asking for parents' cooperation in that. Students riding the bus will have assigned seats, and that is helpful for contact tracing. Again, for students assigned seats and stay in those seats, that minimizes risk and makes those interviews and the contact tracing much easier. Students are asked to sit together as family groups, since they're together as families already anyway, and load back seats first, all the way up to front seats. Again, just minimizing that proximity. In regards to face coverings, again, all students and drivers on school buses or in school vehicles will be strongly encouraged to wear face coverings. Students and staff are asked to provide their own, but again, if they do not have them, we will have them available. And buses will be disinfected following each route. In regards to food service, again, no common touching keypads, barcode scanners will be used as student ID, so there'll be no touching common touch keypads. Service style for breakfast will be grab and go, and lunch, no self-service. The food service staff will serve and plate food. There'll be more more individual wrapped package items served to students, and required hand washing or sanitizer before entering the kitchen cafeteria area. In regards to face coverings, our food service staff will wear face coverings the entire time they're in the food service area, preparing, serving food. In regards to the lunchroom, students will sit by pre-assigned cohort groups, again, for tracing purposes to minimize contact. Student capacity, additional tables will be added, spread apart, encouraging outside seating options when appropriate to maintain that social distance. And then if we were to have short-term closures, we'll certainly consider a meal pickup or delivery option for families, similar to what we did last spring, for instance. In regards to instructional models, Plan A, so we're presenting 3 plans. Plan A is the traditional classroom learning with many mitigation factors in place. Schedules modified to accommodate those mitigation practices, however, with the same start and end times, in regards to keeping transportation and all those things consistent. It's important to note the social emotional well-being is a top priority and foundation for all students and staff. Part of that, big part of that, is just being back together. There are alternatives. Students and families who are not comfortable with in-person learning may enroll in the SCC Virtual Academy. Again, that is its own school and its own entity and completely virtual. There's the contact information. Encourage folks interested in learning, or enrolling or learning more about it to contact Principal Stephanie Posta. We're asking, though, those choosing to enroll in the SCC Virtual Academy to commit to 1 semester. You can enroll at any time, but we're asking for that commitment because the courses are semester long. There's a big financial investment in the coursework, curriculum, and the laptop computer. Plan B would be a blended model. There were many options. Many considered. I'm sure you've heard of some that are out there. We ultimately determined a blended model, which would be grades 4K through seniors, alternating days of at-home and in-person learning, and it looks like this. So again, if you're in Group A, you go in-person one day, at-home learning the next, and just alternating back and forth. Now this is for modeling purposes only. I need to point out A through M is a natural split, but demographically it doesn't necessarily mean that would exactly be where 50% of our population falls. So, you know, it could change slightly, the last name alphabetically. And certainly it's, there are many advantages to this, one of them being families are on the same schedule, siblings. Now I need to note there may be some situational things where there's some at-home learning short term, but with improvements made after lessons learned from last spring. You know, it might be on an individual basis. Positive cases of COVID or close contact may require individuals to self-isolate for 14 days. Education mirroring the daily classroom activities will be done as much as possible. Same thing for groups or cohorts of close contact. Classrooms, cohorts, etc. Might be entire school buildings. A certain threshold of positive cases may require short-term school closure. And this would be made in collaboration with St. Croix County Public Health. Just like any other epidemic, whooping cough, I think, was one of the most recent that we were monitoring closely. And then district-wide, a certain threshold, again, may require short-term district closures, just wanted to mention. And again, this would be made in collaboration with St. Croix County Public Health. And that would be at-home learning, mirroring classroom activities as much as possible. Then Plan C is at-home learning. Again, much like last spring. If local and state health officials have mandated or ordered, like last spring, a move to at-home learning for students, we will enact this plan. That will include daily engagement and interactions with staff and students. So synchronous, some of you may have heard the term synchronous versus asynchronous. Synchronous just means at the same time students would be, asked to participate virtually, digitally, online at the same time, so it's live. And obviously there are many advantages to that. Assessment/feedback will be provided to all students regularly. Traditional grading practices will continue and daily attendance taken. Again, that's a little different than last spring. Our administrative recommendation is for Plan A. At this point, we recommend traditional in-person classroom learning, 5 days per week with multiple safety mitigation practices in effect. Or, again, folks have that option to enroll in St. Croix Virtual Academy, which is 100% virtual school. Communication plan. So it's our intent to communicate early, right now, 6 weeks before school starts, so stakeholders can make decisions and the conversation gets started, feedback gathered. Plan on sending out this presentation and the handbook, which has more details via Thrillshare to all staff and parents tomorrow. Share it to social media tomorrow, district webpage. Also now want to send a parent survey and a staff survey, again, now that there's more information shared and we know everyone is more knowledgeable about this since June. We want to gather the latest information and feedback. So that will be a great opportunity for folks to provide feedback on our plan as of today. We'd like to hold a staff question and answer session, again, via Google Meet. That would be an opportunity to have the Q&A, comments, and discussion, which we think would be very helpful, as well as the community, all of our stakeholders, parents, students, entire community. We would like to schedule a session, again, Q&A via Google Meet. It's really hard as much as we would like to meet in person. It's just the unknown. We don't know if 30 people would show, that would be very doable in the auditorium, or 300 people, and that's just really tough to plan for. We think we can accomplish what we need to digitally via Google Meet and or the YouTube channel. And then continued communication and collaboration with St. Croix County Public Health. That will be ongoing for a long time. Just want to acknowledge the 20 folks that are on our district reopening committee. Adam Sheldon, our strength and conditioning program. Brian Johnson, our high school AD and assistant principal. Brian Peterson, our bus garage supervisor. Chad Kinsella, our network administrator. Chance Langness, our middle school assistant principal and activities director. Dan Rood, our technology integration specialist. Denver Garfield, our lead school nurse. Elaine Stark, HR. Greg Green, director of buildings and grounds. Kurt Soderberg, high school principal. Lindsay Jacobs, elementary assistant principal. Leah Volker, our new director of student services. Nick Bean, the director of teaching and learning. Pat Bashy, our outgoing and recently retired director of student services. Pete Nussbaum, our middle school principal. Shelley Clay, elementary principal. Steph Posta, virtual school principal. Tammy Simonson, our director, food service director. Myself, Vicki Drusang Talapa, our high school health assistant, and Wendy Demeling, our elementary school nurse. So those are the staff members on our district reopening committee. Again, we've been meeting once per week since June 1st. In regards to activities, there's some information here that Brian Johnson, high school activities director, and Chance Langness, middle school activities director, shared for you. Again, following the Wisconsin Department of Health Services and St. Croix County Public Health, much communication and guidance from them. The plan, obviously the purpose is to communicate these measures. Did an outstanding job in planning and opening up our schools for athletics and summer contact days and our strength and conditioning programs. That's went very well. And then utilizing NFHS resources for performing arts. This is in regards to activities. That also applies to athletics. As I mentioned, I want to mention Wisconsin Association of School District Administrators and Wisconsin Interscholastic Athletic Association recently sent a survey to all school district superintendents this past Saturday. So that's currently being discussed and feedback gathered for St. Croix Central, so we can respond to that survey about providing feedback on how athletics should look this fall and beyond. Again, more links for documents that the WI has sent out. And the Read Specifics Here link goes to the WI website for more news and information. Again, finding that balance of resuming activities as safely as possible while providing a valuable extension of our students' classroom learning. Safety and well-being of our students is paramount. We'll be at the forefront of all decision making and clearly communicate that activities, again, ask for your understanding and flexibility. Things can change last minute, and we will do our best in communicating changes as quickly as possible. And again, the competitions or events may look different. There may be some mitigation. There most likely will be some changes and mitigation procedures in effect, again, to reach that balance between safety and providing that valuable extension for our kids. Here's some more information about the St. Croix Virtual Academy. And again, please contact Stephanie Posta if you would like more information or questions. And there's also a link there to the District Virtual Academy webpage. So next steps, again, this week, send out presentation, send out the handbook, do the parent and staff survey, and schedule staff and community feedback session. And again, I just can't state it enough, plans are very subject to change based on the changing world and the latest information and, of course, your feedback. Again, September 1st, you can look at it two ways. It's 6 weeks away as being long or short. It's enough time to make some changes and adjust our plans, but it's fast approaching. And yeah, that is the end of the presentation.
Okay, questions?
Yeah, but I don't know where to start. I mean, it's a lot to come up with, it's a lot to absorb, it's gonna be very, very challenging. And I don't know that.
Yeah, I guess I got a few questions. HVAC, we're gonna up the circulation changes. Are we doing any mitigation such as HEPA filters, or are we doing any kind of sanitation of the ductwork? Make sure we're not sucking in, if we suspect we got a problem, are we sucking it in and then just blowing it all over the building?
Yeah, we asked Greg specifically about the filters that we have. They're very specific and cannot be changed. I think maybe perhaps the HEPA filter you referenced. And the other question you had, Howard, was?
Yeah, are we doing any kind of sanitation of the ductwork at all, or are we just?
Craig is online.
Greg, you're online. Do you want to comment on that?
Has not been sanitized. We do have.
Go ahead. I don't know if I muted him or muted me.
Hang on, Greg.
Let me try this.
Do not have.
I guess I muted myself. I can't hear it.
Just a second, Greg. Still talking.
Wonders of technology. Okay, go ahead, Greg. Go ahead, Greg.
Okay, we do have dampers on our rooftop units that will be bringing fresh air in all the time. We never have them closed tight, so fresh air will be coming in. We will never circulate air within the rooms without bringing in fresh air.
Okay. And that mitigates our problems. That we're not spreading any bugs or anything.
Are you talking about?
Yep.
So.
Are you talking about like UVC light to kill
No, I'm just.
airborne pathogens or anything in the system?
No, I'm just trying to see if our ventilation is good enough that we're not getting any buildup of anything in that ductwork.
Well,
We're keeping it.
how many times do we turn it? Right, so you can open the dampers up, so how many times do we turn the air in the building?
Did you hear that, Greg?
No, I did not hear what he said.
How many times do we do turnover of air in the buildings? Or will we?
Well, I don't know how we really measured that, but our ductwork, we can have it open 10% or higher at all times, depending on temperature outside.
Okay, so we're getting at least 1 or 2 turns an hour.
At least that.
Okay. I don't know if that answers your question, Brian.
Oh, you'd have to do the CFM calculation to get a number on that. I don't know.
Right, and rooms are different, and buildings are different.
Okay, I guess other questions. The testing that they have for the county, as far as I can see right now, they're only testing people that have symptoms. None of the asymptomatic people are being tested at all.
Correct.
So we know some people that were tested this last week that were exposed. I had that listed as, it was 9 to 10 days to get results.
Okay.
That's what they're currently sitting at in St. Croix County, just as of last Thursday, or last Wednesday, would have been done.
Yeah, so anybody that, you know, may think they have had it in the past would not get the test.
First level exposure.
Yeah.
So, like,
Close contact.
close contact, first level, not second level contact.
Okay, as far as bus routes, and we're talking family members together, are they changing the bus routes to accommodate hauling whole families at once, or are we keeping them as we have before of transporting them the shortest distance to get them to this school?
Do you know anything about that, Pete? We haven't.
Well, we won't
Discuss
really
it.
know until we know who's riding the
We
bus.
got to that level
right?
of detail. Yeah.
Okay. That's the question.
On the buses, are we going to, we say we're loading from the back, so we're not gonna separate by ages at all on the bus, we're just gonna, whoever's on first is.
Correct. The close, yeah, the cohorting
Mhm.
is right now more of a priority than the separation of ages.
Yeah.
And I understand not everybody has siblings and ride together, but that's the plan that we would recommend to start with.
Given proximity on a bus, I would advocate mandating masks, not recommending masks or strongly encouraging masks. The length of time on a bus isn't the same as the length of time in passing in a hallway or those sorts of things. I'm not sure where I fall on the masking in school, but on the bus, I would follow CDC guidelines personally.
Yeah, we went back and forth. That's where we started, you know, at one point, and kind of kept running to the enforcement. But we could certainly have the folks that are requiring masks are saying, you know, except for those that, you know, meet certain health guidelines, and then they generally ask for some sort of medical provider's documentation. You know, I mean, it's complicated, but
The whole thing
doable.
is, but yeah.
There
I
isn't a
guess-
filter on that. Right, there's no HVAC system on the bus to rotate that in.
Right.
The other one is school lunches. They're still getting a hot meal, be served by the staff,
Correct.
and they would just come up and get a dish, or they would be served, and as
Correct.
they have in the past.
Yep.
As far as the a la carte, they're gonna have anything in those?
No.
Okay,
No self-service.
okay, so they wouldn't even have servings covered, available for them to grab?
Everything would be served as of right now,
Okay.
Tammy says.
Okay, my last question is, I know we've gone through all this planning, I know we're gonna do another staff survey. Have we gotten any other feedback as to the 5 days a week, other than what we've heard to date?
Yeah, I've had another email from staff person. Yep.
Okay.
Not to interrupt, but can you put the room on the screens? I think it's in presentation mode still. Oh, maybe it's okay.
I
Okay.
don't think it is. Really
It's
stuck.
It's just not in grid view.
That's because it's Howard. Howard's
Okay.
hooked up. I think Howard has, grid view.
Sorry to interrupt you, Tim. So what were the answer to the
He asked if there was,
staffing?
yeah, and
feedback?
again, there's plenty of opportunity for the staff survey and the staff feedback session,
Mhm.
as well as the parent
And
feedback
is-
and survey.
I know there's been consideration for a million things but one consideration obviously would be to treat each building differently and not do Plan A for all buildings.
Mm-hmm.
And if the high school's group was more interested in the sessions, like much more interested, it deserves probably more attention, more another look. Elementary, middle, and high school don't all have to be the same, I guess is my point. And I know you know that, but.
Yep.
Okay. Are there other questions?
Yeah, so was looking at the charts that went up, right? So we had 849 total, but then when we got into individual responses, we had 189.
That was staff. And
Staff.
That was staff.
876 with parents, 189 staff.
So on the
And again, that's bold.
routes, the NA felt, could you go to like, who could get a ride on the bus?
It was 50, over 50%.
No, well, the next one was like 45% said NA.
Because they had said they don't need a bus ride. So it was only the people that said, the 50-some% who said they needed a ride.
Yep.
Were the only ones that answered that. The ones that said they didn't need a ride didn't answer. So they chose NA.
Okay. So those numbers would
So
almost
that
double.
reply was only of the 50-some% of the 800-some on there.
If you answered my child plans to ride the bus,
Yeah,
would you be able to arrange for some?
right, I'm just asking the percentages, was 43% that didn't apply to them.
Because they
Because it
said
didn't, they didn't answer.
because they said they
Oh,
didn't need a
so-
bus ride.
So everything would go up by a percent then of the percent people responding. Okay, got it.
Okay. Are you still muted, Tim?
Do you understand?
Yeah, because only one of us.
Yeah, I'm off right now,
45% is
so.
double.
You're muted as
It
well?
shouldn't be your
Oh.
percent, but
So,
It's double
why don't you do it?
And what was the date of the survey?
The date of the survey? It was, I want to say it was one of like the last day of school for the parents in mid-June for staff. I mean, so it's pretty old data.
Yeah, so the only one I'm asking on is masks, just because that's become very,
Yep.
very front and center and recommended by a lot of things, and the data looks a lot different compared to what
Correct.
it did in the 1st of June.
Yep.
Um,
No, look forward to
Right.
getting the
And how the question is
feedback
asked will
and
matter
those
too.
surveys. Yep. Regard masks is one most folks have a strong opinion on.
And I was contacted by 13 individual teachers from the district with similar concerns to what Logan expressed, though, that they didn't know if their opinions were relayed into this recommendation or reflected in the recommendation. Again, it's 13, right? So it isn't a majority. It's going to be whatever percent that would be, 8.5% or whatever that would be. But it's a decent number to reach out directly to a board member kind of with concerns about this. And my response was that I had to see what was presented because I had no context.
Yeah, so that opinion certainly was relayed
Okay.
to the group. The concern was being systemic. What is, we want our message and our practice and our culture to be what is good for a group is good for all. And if, it's a very, we're really concerned about saying, the health and wellness of this school is more important than the health and wellness of this school, or the education is more important in this school than it is in the other. We understand there are differences, and there's perhaps more crossover with students and staff in the high school than the elementary. We do recognize that. I mean, trust me, we've talked about every possible scenario. We do recognize the daycare issue that potentially, for students that, can't stay at home. But we kind of took that off the table when we just talked about safety and best education. We feel what's best for one group is best for all at this point in our recommendation. We certainly considered that, and that certainly was discussed at length, and it certainly was, I think, more from the high school building committee, more of in favor of that.
Yeah, there's only 2 from the high school of the 13 that reached out, so it was a cross section.
That again, just
that
to
reached out
summarize,
to me.
that said, what again, just to be clear?
Concerned about it, and if we were following guidelines, or what was the premise, or what was
Well,
our
what
danger?
specifically?
Yeah, what
masks
specifically?
or
The schedule
I don't
or the
know if they had-
masks?
I don't know if they had a pre-read. I don't know, because it seems like it was pretty close to a pre-read, the concerns around masks, not necessarily being able to socially distance. It was kind of.
Yeah, because certainly, I mean, this plan was a working document shared with the 20-member committee, of which there's at least one staff member on, I know.
Okay.
So.
Okay, are there any other questions?
Is your microphone on so folks can hear you?
No.
Okay. Yeah, it's not gonna be, that's gonna be part of the feedback. Plenty of time for
I just
that.
have one more on isolation room. Will we be putting people in there that are suspected? Would they all go into one room? Or would there be multiple rooms? So my only concern would be is if you go in there and you send 6 kids or adults or whatever into that isolation room, and what if only one of them is? Depending on how long you're in there, it could be the exposure across the group then. So we just might want to consider more than one room if possible.
The plan that we're working out with the individual nursing staff of each building is that it would be individual, so that they're not compiled together.
Okay, yeah, just singular, that's what it's, but, perfect.
And I'm sure I'll have more questions that I'll put through in feedback, because I need to go through it again. I mean, if anyone that's watching this via Zoom or whatever is wondering, we the board just saw this, so we have to digest it as well. It's a starting point, and we will be giving feedback and concerns as well.
I think that's really worth noting. There's plenty of opportunity in the next week or two for feedback, and
nothing's being voted on.
We have something to discuss, and we have to start making decisions, because again, we're going to start school September 1st. You start making decisions, and a lot of this is guidance and left to local control, and we just need to make the decisions that are best for St. Croix Central.
Yeah, I see we have some concerns on the chat line. I think what we will do at this time is we will save those for our community and staff meetings to get those questions and answers answered. At this time, we'll need to set those up, and would invite everybody to participate in those meetings. As Scott said, it's a lot to digest. Having been in many virtual meetings throughout the spring through now, my personal experience is that virtual is not nearly as productive as face-to-face. But we'll have to see how things go. This situation on this whole pandemic is so fluid. It seems to change daily and weekly. So we're still working the best we can, and hopefully we can come up with the best answer for getting our students educated and keeping our students and staff safe. So Appreciate those that have listened in on this, and again, this will be left to much consideration. So, thank you all. Are there any other questions from the board? Okay, hearing none, we will move on to the next item on the agenda is our student, staff, and community recognition. Brian, you want to read those off?
Yes, we have recipient Melanie Newman. Thank you. Thank you once again for going above and beyond for our children. The 4th grade play was an astonishing production of your hard work and dedication. Thank you. We have the 7th grade CBA boys basketball team. For recognition, congratulations to the 7th grade boys basketball team on their B+ power ranking and 23rd overall ranking in the GNBL. So it's a Great Northwest Basketball League. Good work. And then the 7th grade CBA girls basketball team, recognition, congratulations to the 7th grade girls basketball team on their A power ranking and 4th overall ranking in the GNBL. Good work.
Okay. Congratulations to those, and appreciate those who submitted those names, and we recognize those people for their good work, and hopefully that we can continue recognizing people in the future. So. Thank you. With that, we move on to the next item, future discussion of future district needs and priorities. This has been an ongoing discussion. I don't know if there's anything we need to discuss formally at this point on this item. I think the next steps will have to be working on our communication plan with Joe Donovan, and I think we've seen some of the timeline that he had laid out. I don't know that we've made a decision on whether that was the way we wanted to proceed or not, but I don't know if there's anything else that we need to discuss on this time, or we can postpone it to the 3rd. Assuming no answer is an answer. Okay, then we'll move on. We have our next item is consideration of approval of the annual notices. They're listed in handout item 12B, 12D, I guess it was. This is a list of the annual notices that we need for student academic standards. And there is a spreadsheet.
Which ones are new?
Title IX is the newest one.
So these are 12C, the annual notices required by law in regards to special education, child-defined activity, special needs scholarship program, et cetera, et cetera. I believe these are also found on the website.
Correct.
Okay, so I guess we would need approval, a motion to approve the annual notices as presented.
So moved.
Okay, motion Kirk.
Second.
Second Brian. Okay. Approve the annual notices for the 2020-2021 school year. Any further discussion with regards to that? Okay. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. The next is consideration of approval of the notice identifying pupil academic standards in mathematics, science, reading, writing, geography, history, and history for SEC School District for the 2020-2021 school year. Okay. And those are found on the 12D and 12E exhibit. Actually, showing there that we will be adopting Wisconsin academic standards. So, and those are also on the SEC website. Okay. Any questions there? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Okay, a motion, Scott DeGrow, is there a second?
Second.
Second, Kirk, to approve the notice identifying pupil academic standards for math, science, reading, writing, geography, and history. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next is a consideration of approval of notice identifying pupil academic standards in math, science, reading, writing, geography, and history for the St. Croix Valley Academy of Virtual Education for the year 2020-2021.
Move approval.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion Scott, second Brian, to approve the notice identifying pupil academic standards for the St. Croix Academy, Valley Academy of Virtual Education. Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, I think this comes concern you had, Brian, discussion regarding forming a gym accessibility ad hoc committee. I know we were looking to get some scheduling for gym time. And, I don't know if we need to form this committee, and if so, who would be willing to serve on it?
Just for scheduling, like.
Just a question, because it's getting harder and harder to get gym time for the various activities that are occurring for the kids in the school district, and it ends up that our the kids' activities end up after like adult community education sessions. So kids will end up at practices until 8:30 or 9 o'clock at night, where you have 5 or 6 individuals in a class or something like that taking up gym space for 2 hours earlier in the evening, as an example of that. And I just know that it takes a lot of work for individuals and members of the staff to work through that schedule and all the adjustments whenever there's a cancellation and anything like that.
Okay. I would guess we would probably need somebody, our activities directors, involved in that also.
And maybe community ed.
Okay.
And it doesn't, just saying that it's every year is getting harder and harder. It just seems like we're getting busier and busier, so. And it could be that you just don't offer as many items as an example, or you would cut back on 3rd grade, like basketball programs and short things and stuff like that to free up time could be a solution as well.
I think Wendy would have to be on that. She manages the facilities use portal, and it takes a lot of those calls. Yeah.
Okay. Who would want to coordinate that? Tim, or do I dump on Brian, or?
I can do that.
Okay.
My first call is going to be to Brian. James.
Okay.
We'll go from there. Yeah. So Brian Johnson, that is. Brian Kofold wants to be representative for the board, right? That's what I'm hearing? Okay. We'll proceed with that.
As you move forward, you're gonna want somebody from the CBA, Central Rec, Community Ed, so.
Yep.
Okay. See if we can get it rolling, but it may take a little time to get it set up, but hopefully we can get something going before we get too far into activities in the fall. So. Okay. Is there any other discussion on forming the ad hoc committee? before we move on? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to the next is, we tabled this last month, consideration of approval of adding liquidated damages for extracurricular assignments. I don't know where we are on that. We had pretty long discussion on it last month. I don't know where we want to go with that. I think we've heard from all parties. I'm still on the fence. I could go either way, but my personal feeling at this point is I think we've got more and bigger fish to fry than to worry about this at this point.
I'm still opposed.
Yeah, we postponed it so that we could have a majority of the board present for the discussion, for the last discussion, so.
Okay. Okay, so we're still in the same boat. I don't know if you want to table it again for another month or just drop it for future consideration. Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to have it tabled for another month.
Can I ask a question? There's another agenda item about assessment of liquidated damages for teaching contracts and consideration for approval to waive.
Is that COVID related?
Correct. All because of the extenuating circumstances.
Okay. Yeah. So that's just asking for a waiver for liquidated damages.
Okay.
I make a move to table.
Okay. Okay.
I'll second it.
Okay. So, at this point, all those in favor of tabling for another month? Okay.
Aye.
Okay, so we'll table it for another month. We'll have a full board here to consider the,
I'll make one more comment if I could. If it does go to, if it is presented again, in C, I would say an employee called into service by the government, not involuntarily called into service.
okay. That item will be tabled again for another month. Moving on to the next is consideration of the first reading of Board Policy 110 regarding the district vision, mission, beliefs, and commitments. We made some changes during our workshop with regards to this item. I don't know if anybody has had a chance to look this over again. Has had any thoughts on additions, corrections, changes that need to be made at this time? This is pretty much the language that we pounded out in our review, and additions and changes to it.
I would say let it stand as the first reading.
Okay. Okay, if everybody's in agreement, then it will stand as the first reading of the changes to policy 110. And we will bring that back to for final consideration and a vote at the next meeting, which will be on August 3rd. Okay, the next is regards approval to waive. First is the assessment of liquidated damage for teacher contracts per SCC Employee Handbook Part 2, Section 5.028, Paragraph A2 for the 2020-2021 school year. Tim?
Yeah, I can speak. It applies to all three of these, although they would need three separate motions. But again, just in these unprecedented times and COVID and uncertainty, we understand that staff, don't have the latest information, and as decisions are made, they may they'll make their decisions based on the protocols. So knowing that, we just think it's fair that we waive liquidated damage for teacher contracts and resignations. The local retirement benefit, we asked March 1st. Again, it could happen in the next 6 weeks or so, and as well as a 30-day notice request for unpaid leave of absence. Again, all decisions that we understand employees might make based on the health concerns of COVID-19. So we're just asking to waive those for calendar year. Well, this school year.
Contract year.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it, contract year, for those 3 for the same reasons.
Okay, is there any discussion?
Is there any legal, not in our handbook, issues that they're gonna experience with DPI or?
No, the one I was specifically had asked Elaine to check into, what she did was with WRS, for the item 2,
right.
And she said no.
Okay.
Like we've had folks retire in October, anytime. So, no, good question. Checked into that, and there are none. Just our own local policy.
Okay. So we will take these one at a time then. Consideration to approve to waive the assessment of liquidated damage for teaching contracts for SCC Employee Handbook Part 2, Section 502A2 for the 2020-21 school year. Do I have a motion there?
So moved.
Okay. Motion Scott, second Kirk. Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next is consideration of approval to waive the local retirement benefit notification deadline of March 1st. I have a motion.
So,
Second.
A motion Kirk, second Scott, to waive the local retirement benefit notification deadline of March 1st. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. The last is consideration to approve to waive the 30-day notice request for unpaid leave of absence per SCC Employee Handbook Part 1, Section 1401, Paragraph A for the 2020-2021 school year. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion Scott. Do I have a second?
second.
Second Kirk. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, at this time, is there any other business?
Maybe just input on feedback sessions. Their board representative or committee, or your involvement in those. What's your interest in that?
I would be interested in attending.
Should it be a representative? Should it be a committee? Should it be a meeting that's posted? I guess just looking for those details, your feedback on that. It should be just the community and not the staff one, or both.
I think we're going to have to get involved in both.
I think so too, because I don't know how we can make a solid recommendation to accept the administration's recommendation without knowing the feedback.
Okay.
And next would be setting a date.
Right. So then we should look at calendars as key stakeholders. Elaine, for instance, in HR, the staff one especially, and our directors, transportation, food service, and building. A lot of folks we want there as much as possible. So, but
I would
Let's
say
start with
after
your
this-
calendars.
After this week, my calendar's pretty open.
Yeah, who's all interested in? Should we just post it as a board meeting and everybody that can make it, great?
I think so.
Yeah, board meeting and with no action items, so it doesn't require a quorum.
Okay. Want me to start?
Well, under those circumstances, I would say that your stakeholders that you're gonna ask are gonna be tougher to get scheduled, and we're going to have to be able to flex in if we can make it.
Okay.
That'd be my feeling on it.
And the sooner the better.
My schedule's
Right.
pretty flexible.
I would say so.
Do we wanna have these in person though? I mean, I heard what you said, but maybe it has to be 2 or 3 sessions or something like that, it just,
Or maybe it's in the auditorium and it's ticket lottery, gating, something, you know, I mean, if it becomes more than 100 or whatever the number is,
We can figure out the capacity and maintain social distancing.
and then from there you would have to do a lottery, submit out or written if you aren't able to be there or able to make it in facility,
Yeah.
something, I don't know.
the irony isn't lost on me if we have to do it remotely because we can't do it and then a couple weeks later it's.
Correct. We get, a virtual session to determine in-person learning. I get that irony, yes. Rough math, we probably have to have 4 seats between people. 600 seat facility.
We have 62 people at the
Tim, can I
CBA.
jump in real quick? Is we're sitting back here, 2 things are really coming to our mind. Number one, I mean, if this is gonna happen, we're talking, what, 2-3 weeks? I mean, we're expected to be meeting with our building level committees, trying to plan for September 1. So, I mean, if we're leaving tonight without an answer, I mean, it doesn't do us any good really, outside of what we've already done, in regards to moving forward in planning, the start of the school year, ordering, et cetera. So, you know, I'm a little worried about the more time we take, parents are gonna wanna make a decision. You know, what do they base their decision off of? I'm a little concerned about both those in regards to us moving forward and,
So you're asking for expediency. The
Well,
quicker we can schedule these, is that what I'm understanding?
I think that's a given.
We have to, I mean,
Yeah.
we're expected to meet with our buildings right now and,
I think we're looking at the next, from my perspective, from the 27th through to the end of the following week. It'd be what, about the 6th or 7th of August?
7, yeah.
but you're 2 weeks in August and we're right in the middle of our open houses. We were social distancing, so we moved our open houses up.
Yeah, I'm not saying that this, it's gonna shoot for the next 10 days, I would say.
Well, and maybe it's submit questions and concerns online before this. I didn't start going through things and push it along as fast as possible. And because anyone that's gonna come to the meeting can and maybe would probably rather submit their points to have addressed rather than, you know, I mean, it's hard to stand in front of a group and say what you meant to say. And if 10 people said the same thing, you can start compiling that from a submitted.
Yeah, we'd certainly like to get the survey out in a couple days. You know, that's a really good start, right? You're right, there's a really good opportunity for everyone to submit their feedback and questions at their convenience. It doesn't require everyone being in the same room togetherness.
I mean, the other one at the school is you can project that into the small gym in the back, right? For overflow seating.
Yeah.
And then
into the
front
large
lobby.
gym, or we probably could do both.
I I just know we put our music for the dance studio into the small one, or, well, Randy does.
Oh, yeah. I thought you meant like video.
I don't do anything with that, so.
But yeah, time is of the essence for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
All right,
we'll
I'll
get
get-
something scheduled in the next week to 10 days then.
Yeah, survey, let's say within the next 48 hours. And that listening feedback session in the next 10 days will be the goal.
Okay. Is there anything else we need to cover? One thing I would mention is WASB has several webinars and resources that are coming up with regards to school reopening and some of the other issues that are before us. If you have an opportunity to check their website out, check those resources. They're usually pretty good and a lot of things considered in other districts, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Is there anything else? Okay, hearing none, we will move on to the important upcoming dates. Remember Saturday, July 25th is our virtual SCC graduation ceremony starting at noon. August 3rd is our next SCC board learning and special meeting starting at 6:30 p.m. August 17th is our next regularly scheduled SCC board meeting, 7 p.m. here at the district office. And our annual meeting is scheduled, not as the paper said on the 27th of July, but rather October 5th of 2020. And that will be held at the budget hearing at 7 p.m. on October 5th at 7 p.m. at the SCC Elementary School Library, with the annual meeting immediately following. So, is there any other dates that I missed? Not hearing any, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion Kurt, second Scott. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you all.